businesses as well.
Sydney, thank you so much for this interview. It was a pleasure talking with you, and keep up the great work.
Thank you so much for having me, Ryan. I'm excited about the future and all of the great things that we're going to do here for the city of Lancaster.
From the hangar in Lancaster, California, I'm Angel.
And I'm Jacobo.
This week in our city, the city's new Traffic Management Center, the California Mortgage Relief Program,
Lancaster's prime desert woodland preserve, the public works staff, and the early life and career of childhood star Judy Garland.
I think what I'm most excited to talk about in this episode is Judy Garland. What about you?
You know what? I think I have to agree with you. Wizard of Oz, flying monkeys.
Can't beat 'em.
Yep.
Here in the city of Lancaster, there's always something new and exciting to do, like taking a trip to visit one of the boulevard's local boutiques for some shopping, dine at a restaurant, or visit one of the city's historical landmarks. But for many, driving around the city can be a bit strenuous because of traffic. According to Local Conditions, a website that gives a general look at the flow of traffic in your desired location, Lancaster experiences a great deal of traffic in different parts of the city. Lancaster's more popular areas, like the Boulevard and Cinemark movie theater, are prone to experiencing heavy flows the most, while the Soul Plaza shopping center gets a medium flow of traffic, which can make trying to get to an appointment or catch a movie on time a bit stressful. In addition to the traffic, there's also having to wait at stoplights, which on average can last anywhere from 60 to 90 seconds, although sometimes it feels like an eternity. But the city aims to cut down on that time by introducing the Traffic Management Center. The city of Lancaster partnered up with Metro to build the Traffic Management Center, which is housed in City Hall and will collect data of the 140 plus signalized intersections. Staff will be able to monitor the flow of traffic in real time in order to make adjustments to the traffic flow and reduce congestion. With the new technology, the city is granted the ability to test different systems as well. These systems will aid in reducing traffic collisions, track average speeds, improve bicycle safety, reduce side street wait times, and collect data to assist in other traffic improvements. By implementing the Traffic Management Center, the city will increase the safety for motorists and bicyclists, while also work to improve the flow of traffic in a positive manner. The Traffic Management Center had an open house that employees could attend. There was mini games that featured traffic-related trivia questions, traffic-themed cookies made by Pop House Desserts AV, and even a raffle that gave away prizes. We spoke with staff from the City of Lancaster's Transportation Department for insights about this project and what it means for the city.
This is Joseph from L28. I'm here with Mitch from Traffic Management, and he's going to give us a quick overview of what today is about and what kind of new features they have going on for us.
This project started, it was back in 2017 in conjunction with Metro to build a traffic management center to where we can view all the video from our detection cameras and closed circuit TV.
If I could, we usually do a 5-year comparison. If we're going to go back,
Oh, okay.
If that's okay with you guys, we can start adding that.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. All right. This is a familiar slide. So these slides will still stay the same for that first part, but I'll have the added information after, okay? So rapes over a period of a year are averaging 7. If we go over to the next slide, you'll see the difference in increase and decrease. There's a 16.9% increase from January to December of 2022 versus January to December of 2021. From December of 2022 and 2021, you have a 50% increase with no change from the month prior. Robberies over a period of a year. In the month of December, we were averaging 28. January to December, 28.35% increase. December of 2022 to December of 2021, a 40% increase. And then the month prior, there was no change. Aggravated assaults over a period of a year in the month of December were averaging around 86. Aggravated assaults in comparison, January to December, 23.88 from the year of 2022 versus the year of 2021. December 2022 versus December 2021, 34.62% increase. And then the month prior had a 4.48% increase from December to November of 2022. Domestic violence, aggravated related assaults, they went down, averaging around 11 in the month of December. From January of 2022 to December of 2022 versus January to December of 2021, 17.31% increase. December of 2022 versus December of 2021, there was a 28.57% decrease. December of 2022 versus November of 2022, a 44.44% decrease. Burglaries over a period of a year went down slightly, averaging around 63. Burglaries in comparison, 26.63% increase from January to December of 2022, and then versus January, December 2021. We have a slight decrease December to December from each year, 1.69% of a decrease, and then from month to month, 15.94% decrease of 2022. Larceny and thefts have gone up in the month of December, which is expected, that's Christmas time, averaging 111. So in comparison, 12.70% increase from year to year, and then 8.13% decrease month to month within each year, and then 13% increase from month to month within that year. Grand theft vehicles over a period of a year have gone up, averaging 89. Grand theft vehicle comparisons, only a slight decrease, 1.21% from the whole year versus 2021. December of 2022, month to month, 1.82% increase. Sorry, not month to month, but December of 2022 and December of 2021, 1.82% increase. December to November, 14.29% increase. Arsons have gone down, averaging 4 in the month of December. Arsons over a comparison, 25.49% decrease from year to year, 33.33% decrease from December of 2022 versus 2021, and a 66.67% decrease from month to month. Part 1 crimes over a period of a year averaging 387. Part one crime comparison, January to December, 13.47% increase. The same month last year, 3.21% increase, and month to month, 4.89% increase.
I apologize. What do you mean by part 1?
So when you compare it, so it's going to be month to month from December of 2022 versus November. So that 30-day window had a 4.89% increase from the month prior. It's the same year, it's just from November to December, there was an increase of 4.89%. If you go up one, where it says December of 2022, if you look at that same time from the year prior, then you'll see an increase from 3.21%. So as time goes by over a period of a year within that same month, what kind of activity is occurring at that time? So we gave you a breakdown from a 30-day window to what happened in December of last year versus the current year that we're doing the stats on, and then what happened over a period of a whole year.
Yeah, I understand that, but I just don't understand what you mean by part 1 crime. What
Oh, I'm
crimes
sorry.
are associated
Okay,
with that?
so part 1 crimes would be burglary, robbery, excluding murder, things of that nature. So your larceny, thefts, overall. So all of these are considered part 1 crimes. They're all combined into one category. Okay. The basics of criminalization, if you would, right? It gives you an overall. So everything I went over is categorized into this one slide, giving you an overall comparison of everything. Exactly.
Lawrence, just
Wait.
really fast,
There he is.
and,
I was like, sorry.
and the captain can probably explain that as well. So basically, your Part 1 crimes are going to be your more serious offenses. Larceny is thrown in there as well. And then your Part 2 crimes are a bunch of lesser offenses. So exactly what Lawrence said, those serious crimes are the ones that are in the Part 1 category. John, I don't know if you want to add something.
Yeah, so this slide actually is it's the total out slide, if you will, for all the previous slides. You can see that, we're monitoring the trends in those slides for those Part 1 crimes. Lawrence, can you go back to the aggravated assaults?
Absolutely.
Our aggravated assaults were up. Encompassed in our aggravated assault numbers are domestic violence incidents. So we try to pull that information out to see, because we're partnering with the public safety and a bunch of our CBOs to develop programs to affect domestic violence ahead of the incident. So we're tracking whether our efforts are being successful or not, trying to bring down the overall aggravated assault number by addressing one section of it. That's one of the reasons we bring the domestic violence numbers in there. Our domestic violence numbers are starting to trend down. Mainly in December, they trend down. There's the Santa Claus effect where everybody wants to behave themselves in the month of December and families around each other and everyone's on their best behavior. I predict, and if you'll see historically, January, February, those numbers tend to spike. There's some other social economic issues that cause those things, but all the way back, Lawrence, one more, I think, to aggravated assaults. So our aggravated assaults are up. These are all the other assaults that are not domestic violence related. These are our shootings, stabbings, vehicle assaults where people are actually assaulting each other that are not related to a domestic violence incident. So those two numbers would be together normally on a presentation, but we pull the domestic violence out. That last slide, Lawrence, if you go all the way to the end of it, the total out one, that's just an average of all of those things.
Minus the domestic violence.
No, everything is included in there.
Okay.
It's an
Everything.
average slide.
Okay.
So our overall crime rate ending at the end of last year increased by, it was like 15, I forgot the exact number.
Sorry, give me a second. I'm getting back over there right now.
All right, back up
Go
one.
back.
13.47% increase overall Part 1 crime increase from the previous year. It's a significant increase. I look at that and I sit down with Rod and we look at other comparable areas. Our increase in crime percentage-wise was smaller than our neighboring areas. Those other areas are seeing more significant percentage increases in crime. So I think our partnership with public safety and the city is working to help curb that and slow it down. Can you go back to the Grand Theft Auto slide? There's one thing I just wanted to point out on that. The chart actually, if you see in the trend there for last year, the numbers that are below the mean there, those are the areas where we had full enforcement of our catalytic converter task force that the city pretty much, we took city items and used them for our portion of that task force. You can see that it had an impact. It was driving the numbers down. They were not just addressing the catalytic converters, but we were looking at the catalytic converter thefts and the stolen vehicles that went along that were associated with that. So we were able to, by putting directed enforcement on that, we were able to drive the numbers down. Unfortunately, it was unsustainable based on our staffing model right now. We'd love to bring it back because you can tell just the small investment of the 3 deputies plus recruiting from other stations makes a significant impact in those numbers.
So what would we need to do in order to bring that program back?
We're working on that. A lot of it hinges upon us,
Okay.
upon our staffing and how we're building our staffing back up.
Okay. Another thing on here with your rate numbers, is that overlapping with some of your domestic violence numbers?
No.
No.
These are, our rape statistics are an interesting model because we take a look at stranger versus known suspect information. The majority of our rapes, the suspect is known
Okay.
to the victim. But because of circumstances, that's how we categorize the incidents. There are some rapes that get captured in what we sometimes refer to as business disputes involving the young ladies out there on Sierra Highway. So we're forced to capture those numbers in our stats for the rapes. It's a pretty high number for the year. I could tell you, having read many of the reports, that the legitimate stranger rape number is much smaller than what we have to present here because of the way we capture the reports. We did have some rapes last year that were stranger. We didn't know who they were. We're still working some of those cases with DNA and follow-up investigations. But the majority of those, we know who the suspects were, or they were related to some kind of other illegal activity.
So is that a significant increase with the so-called business disputes added to that?
No.
Okay.
Actual number-wise, no.
Okay,
The percentages are bad because the numbers are low. So.
okay, thank you.
Okay. Here are your hot spots for the month of December. Still in the business district areas for the darkest reds. Does anyone have any questions as far as the hot spots are concerned before I continue? Okay. There's a couple other things I want to mention. Our traffic division actually did a speed enforcement operation. So in 2022, the city of Lancaster suffered 27 fatal traffic crashes and over 1,000 injury crashes. The extent of injuries parties endured in a crash is directly related to the speed involved. The Antelope Valley Traffic Task Force, AVTTF, consisting of Lancaster Station deputies, Palmdale Station deputies, and AVCHP officers, conducted targeted speed enforcement operations throughout the year of 2022. As part of our ongoing efforts to reduce injury and fatal crashes, the AVTTF conducted a speed enforcement operation on Avenue H near 10th Street West in the city of Lancaster. The operation resulted in 25 speed citations and 2 misdemeanor arrests during a 2-hour period. Lancaster Station will be conducting similar enforcement efforts throughout the city in the future, and would like to remind motorists to slow down, be attentive, and drive defensively and sober so that you may avoid a crash. The life you save may be friend, a relative, or your own. This is a PSA that we're going to be putting out today. Actually, one of my partners is probably in the process of posting it on social media. These happen. These speed enforcement things happen throughout the year often. We don't post it because we don't want everybody aware of where we're going to be or anything of that nature. But it does help, and it does document, the average DUI driver and what's been going on within the city and how many, during what times of the hours and things of that nature. So it's very important that the community understands that we are continuing to crack down on this type of thing, and it's not going away anytime soon. So I did want to bring that to your attention so you know that we are doing it, and we currently will be continuing to do this. Any questions so far?
Did we receive a copy of this report? I don't recall seeing it. I may have, maybe in my inbox, and I didn't see it. Okay,
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm going to try to incorporate these slides for unique things that we do throughout the city in this one presentation, which is why it's going to take a little bit longer. But it's very important that you understand that that's not just the normal presentation that we normally do. It's not the only thing that we do. I want you guys to understand that we have a lot of other things going on, and I'm going to try to incorporate things like this into the slides from now on. Our crime prevention techniques via social media, Facebook Live, our Zoom meetings, and town hall meetings. We do have an upcoming town hall next month on the 7th for anybody that would like to join, and it will start at it will go from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. over at Antelope Valley Partners for Health on the 7th. Our community engagement for the month of December had our Stuff a Humvee toy drive. We partnered up with Target and Sam's Club. We had the toy collection service in front of Target. As you can see, I think I was able to collect about 17 large bags of toys to distribute out through the community, the local community within Lancaster. We partnered with a church off of Yucca, and we did a distribution in collaboration with a church out there. And the kids were able to come out and pick a toy each until we exhausted all of our toys for that day. And this is something that we do on a normal basis. We do this every year. I will pick a park, I will pick a random place, and I won't tell the community until the last minute. I'll get on Facebook Live and tell them to come out. The kids are in their pajamas running to us, ready to pick out a toy of their choosing, and it's like the best thing in the world. The community loves it, and the people that donated get to see that it goes to their city, the people in need in their city. So awesome time of the year. One of my favorite times being a community relations deputy. Any questions? All right, there's our crime definitions for those of you who don't know don't understand like the qualifications of each crime. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. But it's all there in definition. And there's our data sources from LARCIS. And that'll be the end of the CompStat presentation. The next presentation will be LEAPS, and it will be conducted by a representative from LEAPS. Any questions as far as mine is concerned?
So a few things come up as we go through these presentations, and Captain Lecravane, did I pronounce that reasonably well? First of all, when you have small numbers, little changes produce big percentage changes. So I'm not sure that maybe we should go to an analysis per population, meaning what's our number of crimes per 100,000, right? That would eliminate some of the variation that we see with small numbers. I think what people want to know is the Antelope Valley, is Lancaster a safer or less safe place to live as time goes on? If the crime rate's increasing, again, I think an important distinction is crime between people that know each other and people that don't. I think people are more afraid of random, unknown criminals than they are irritating their wives to the point of anger. I thought it was very interesting. For example, we get to hear about how we're doing here in Lancaster, but that was very interesting. We're doing maybe a little worse, but we're doing better than surrounding areas. How are we doing with respect to the rest of Los Angeles County? How are we doing in the state? Now, how does the state do with respect to the rest of the country? The purpose of all this, I suppose, is to try and find a way to address the problem. If crime's getting worse, is it because we need more police officers? Is it because laws in Sacramento are changing in ways that make it easier to be a criminal, or people being released sooner? Do we have more parolees than we used to have in the community, where there might be some response that we could recommend or think about that would help reduce the crime? Obviously, I think it used to be obvious that the population in Lancaster has steadily gone up over time. And so are we adjusting, as I said in the beginning, are we adjusting by having our numbers per population base, per 100,000 or per 10,000? So some of those things, and again, I don't want to create more work for you, but I think what people are trying to step back from when you look at the month to month, what you really want to know is, how are we doing in Lancaster? Are we more safe or less safe, and what can we do about it?
I agree. I will have to talk to find out if there's a month-to-month increase in population, because obviously, yeah, the population numbers do matter as far as affecting the percentages and change. So we have 12 maps here versus downtown, where there's a corner of a map where we have to work with. The population increase will give a person that doesn't understand the concept of numbers a better idea of whether it's safe, like you said, safer or not as safe as it was last year. Public Safety Director, Mr. Armlin, do you know if there's a tracking for a month-to-month increase in population or only a yearly increase in population?
You know, that's something I'll have to ask the city to see if we monitor it. We probably do. Yeah.
I think
so-
it's more of like a 6-month or a 1-year calculation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll check internally and find out, so.
Okay, if that's the case, then if we get a 6-month or a 1-year one, then you'll have that same population number on the first 6 months of slides. If that's the case, there won't be a change in number of population. However, it just gives a way better clear idea of whether this city is improving or declining. So I agree 100%. Thank you.
Commissioner, I could probably add a little bit to that. Some of the other areas that we monitor when we're looking at our crime data are calls for service, the types of calls for service, where they're occurring. Actually, we've been trying to adjust our patrol areas to address our response times and bring our response times down and spread the workload a little bit more evenly for field units. So the things that we're monitoring are how many reports are being generated out of specific areas, what kind of crimes are occurring, because different types of crimes require more time investment from a patrol deputy and then a detective later on. But we're looking to see if we're deploying the resources that we have in an efficient manner in order to get people the services quicker and give them a sense of response that we take their crimes seriously and we're going to investigate everyone's crimes in an equal manner. But I believe we can add that information, the crime per 100,000, or I believe it's 10,000 is the numbers that we currently keep. But we can probably add that to the presentation. It's not a difficult matter. We can also, because we are already starting to monitor it in other areas, we can give you a map that shows how many crimes occur in each of what we call our reporting districts. It's very similar to the heat map that's up there, and you can see where the crimes are occurring around town. You know, we are constantly trying to get out the message that Lancaster is a fairly safe community. We do have some incidents that make the news, and we have some incidents that are high profile. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of control over how the media spins those things, and some of them are high profile incidents that we have to address. But that doesn't mean that the city and the surrounding county areas aren't safe places for people to live and do business.
How does I'm sure you guys can probably research this, or you already know, where does the city of Lancaster rank as far as crime with Los Angeles County as well as with the state?
I don't know those numbers off the top of my head, but we can look into that. We can report back on that.
Any additional questions?
I have a question, but it's not something related to your ComStat.
Okay.
I noticed that lately, especially after Christmas, you know, there is a huge number increased about the graffitis throughout the city, especially on the west side. You know, they tag freeway signs and business properties and all that, you know. So you guys know there anything difference? And the gang, normally those graffitis is related to the gang.
Yes. As you can see, when you're dealing with graffiti, you'll see crossouts of one gang graffiti marker versus another, and then it kind of just escalates. That's why the graffiti grows so quickly, because of two interacting graffiti gangs clashing with each other. The way they express their feelings about each other is unfortunately graffitiing up the businesses in the areas, parks around the area, which grow. Our graffiti tracker is active and running. So once the graffiti tracker is implemented, we can then trace back certain areas of gangs that are graffiti gangs, and it also record and track over time. So that way, when there is one crime of graffiti done, we can track it back to multiple crimes of that same disturbing party. So we're working with the city to manage the graffiti tracker and assign people to defeat this whole graffiti problem that we're having, which our public safety director will address as well, and show you where we're at in that process of fixing that problem that is a huge problem that you are mentioning.
You're aware of it, there's a big increase.
Oh, yeah.
Some months or so.
Yes, and you may remember the skate parks is where I'm seeing a lot of it at. It's where all the kids congregate, and that tends to happen where juveniles congregate. So.
And if I could just add, we keep the graffiti cost restitution model updated every 3 years as we're required to under state law, so that when we find the person who's responsible, we recover our costs on that, because it's quite costly to remove the graffiti. So that's why we work all as a team to make sure that we track where it is and who it is and every penny that we can get, and we get it.
I mean, it was a great thing. Actually, I made reports on after Christmas, on the Christmas day, and one of those gang, they just tagged west side about, the Lancaster. I see that when I drive around, I see a lot of them. But, the city took care of that, and really quick, and they didn't waste any time. And I appreciate that. That was great work, It seems like months or so is keep increasing. You can see it on the freeway sign now. You can't even see it, it's all covered.
Yes, I think it was like Avenue M or N. One of them have the whole sign covered. But the city is, as they amp up, we will amp up. So we'll get it taken care of, absolutely. Any additional questions?
Any questions?
No? All right, we'll move on to the LEAPS report. And then I will have a representative from LEAPS go ahead and give you that report today. I only have the digital one, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, that's all right.
Sorry.
That's okay, I get it down. Well, good morning, Commissioners. I'm happy to do this, by the way. I've been with the LEAPS program ever since its inception in the mind of our mayor. So we, just one note, we, the ones that provide that service to the city, our hats off to our new Director of Public Safety. He is a great person to work with. Okay, well, my eyes aren't that good. I didn't bring my long distance glasses, so I will wing it, okay? Oh, okay, good, thanks. Thanks, Rod. Okay, fair enough. The month of December was an interesting month in that due to climatic conditions, we were not able to put an aircraft in the air for a number of days that the captain wanted it there. Today, we only put that airplane in the air when he requests it, our Rod. That's our rules. In the beginning, it ran differently. I never was quite comfortable with that. I've been in this business for well over 60 years, and I respect my customers, and when they give me money, I plan to give them their dollar's worth. So I am tickled that that's the way we do it today, and thanks to both of these gentlemen. For the month of December, like I say, we lost 35 hours of support that month because of climatic conditions. On the right-hand side there, those are the areas that we have worked with LASD to highlight these particular types of tactical calls we respond to. A tactical call is one where in the dispatch area, either from a call from the field or directly from the 911 calls, LEAPS needs to go there. Or a double click on the handset from an officer in the field says, with the response is Willie 1 in the air? And that's what we respond to. Arrest supported 27 of those, traffic stops 37, burglary and robbery 17, fights and assaults 40, persons with a gun 10. My own personal, since I look at this data every month, that's something that has gone up in the past. And then other offenses and suspicious circumstances, whether that's on stakeout, observing an area, or is a car at a certain locations, 22 of those. The back of the report, these 5 specific areas are specific areas of interest to public safety. those that do with people, 33%, arrests and detention, 16%, property involved, 13%, vehicles, 23%, and observations, that could be a stakeout or is there a car out there? It's much easier for us to fly over and report back to the Lancaster station if a vehicle they're looking for is there. If I'm going to, or myself or one of my representatives are going to do this, I'm particularly interested in, if there's any particular piece of information that you're interested in, we would be more than happy to present that verbally to you. This format we've been using for a while. It went through a major modification at the beginning of the pandemic, and that's where it is today. There's nothing magic about it. If there's something more that we can provide in an easier format, we're more than happy to do that. We were pleased, Commissioner McCracken, I hear that you did enjoy your flight and your visit to the dispatch center.
I did. I was gonna comment on that. Thank you so much, Buff, for taking me out there and showing me it from the station's point of view as well, from up in the air. And I urge the rest of the commissioners to definitely take a look at that, because that was it's a great system to have. And I can see where that was a good help for our deputies out there, and any help we can give them is fantastic. So, you know, and I know we've been talking about this for some time now, so I was wondering what's our status on where we're at?
Like I had mentioned at the last commission meeting, Commissioner, LEAP's increasing their flight time. I got to talk to Archie, because I'm actually surprised. I thought they had regular scheduled hours, so I don't know how that changed to where it's
We're still doing that, but that was that number of hours. We are airborne, break release to touchdown 5 hours for 5 days a week. And this is a good agreement that we, at the direction of the captain and support by Rod, that we support on a daily basis, unless crosswinds are too high or it's a heavy rain.
Okay. So, yeah, no, because I thought a moment ago you had said it was only at our request. I thought you guys had a regular schedule, and we're still continuing on that path.
Yes, sir.
So hopefully you are? Okay, great. And
So it's 5 hours a day?
So it's 5 hours a day?
Yes.
5 days a week?
5 days a week,
5 days
that's
a
right.
week, 5
So,
hours.
I'm sorry, Rod, we interrupted you, I apologize. Go ahead, no, go ahead, sir, then I'll make a comment.
No, and then I was going to say, as mentioned at the last commission meeting, looking at the LEAPS platform, increasing it, and possibly buying the camera are things that we are considering. But we also are considering a complete technology package for the city, and we've started on some of it, and LEAPS is in there. It's just that we have to accomplish it piece by piece, and especially with the mayor's direction that we get our hybrid police officers up and running. So, and that's why I met with Archie, I don't know, maybe a month ago, or maybe a month and a half ago.
Numerous times. Numerous times.
Because we're also exploring additional options for additional funding for the LEAPS program as well. So, we have other technologies, and in fact, when I talk to you, I'll touch on a little bit of that, but I'll also tell you that when I come up and start to give my public safety presentation, that I met with the sheriff, myself, and the city manager last week, and so we're seeking his support in a multitude of areas, and some of that absolutely affects the LEAPS program. It affects the crime stats that you folks just received. But I'll wait and give you all of that when I'm doing my public safety portion of the presentation. So,
Question on the schedule of 5 hours a day, 5 days a week. How is that determined? And in the event, hypothetically, you start on a Monday, you go through Monday through Friday, and Saturday you have yourself a high-speed chase. You want to initiate it, just kind of trying to figure out how those hours work and assigned.
I can probably answer that best, Chairman, Commissioner. When we talked about this several months ago, and we tried to set a time within budget for the most effective times, we based it on the highest calls for service that were requiring air coverage, and the dates and the times that we set with the limitations of the equipment that we currently have is how we chose those times. So we would most definitely like to, if we're going to expand the program, we would most definitely like to run it 7 days a week and at night.
That was going
Yeah.
to be one of my next questions. Okay,
But the equipment is far outlived its projected life by about 4 times, and its capabilities have diminished. That's why there's been a request to upgrade the equipment. And with an upgrade in the equipment, we could see adjustments in the time frame of when we use that platform.
And Archie, the cost of that equipment is how much?
There's a number of pieces that they're in the upgrade. The actual camera itself is about $250,000. And that is a modern, updated camera. It has a Sterling engine in it, which makes it exceptional infrared capability. It's equivalent to what the National Reconnaissance Office in DC uses. Those 5 days that we fly are Thursday through Monday. And based on the density, the call density and support that LASD Lancaster Station requires, that's the most effective we can deliver the best product per unit time during those 5 days for 5 hours a day.
So one of my questions was going to be just that, in terms of what would be beneficial for the Sheriff's Department in terms of information that they're getting. Certainly night, in other words, crimes probably occur more at night than in the daytime, or on the weekends and the weekdays. But also, I've been here a long time, as you know, and in the old days, airplanes might have been a good idea. Have we thought about, and have you guys thought about replacing your manned flights with drone flights? In other words, you get rid of your pilot, maybe your aircraft, in some ways might even, I don't know anything about the cost of these things, might be less expensive, and a drone could conceivably put in a lot more hours than a manned flight. This is something no doubt you guys are thinking about.
Yes, we did an extensive study at the mayor's original request back in 2011 as to which would be the best platform, because he was getting inputs from all over the spectrum. The biggest problem with the drone is the number of airfields that we have, that at Fox Field, Plant 42, and Joshua out of Edwards Air Force Base. You can't operate a drone. And you can't operate it above 500 feet. And the duration that a 172 can stay on station in the air is about 4.5 hours. Your typical small drone is good for maybe 45 minutes.
So, and this was a determination you guys were, I think you said 2011?
Yes, that's when we started it, yes.
And presumably the technology has improved over the years. It's puzzling to me, and I know nothing about it. But it's puzzling why a drone has more or less restriction than an aircraft in terms of areas that have a lot of air traffic.
There's a lot of difference from controlling a drone on the ground as opposed to the controller sitting in the seat. There's a big difference.
Commissioner, if I may, one of the technologies we are currently considering is drone. In fact, we're looking at a program that's being run by several other cities. And we do think that there's ways that we can work around some of the flight areas, but Archie is correct. There are areas that we probably will not be able to get into, but that does not defeat the advantages of the drone program as we are viewing it at this time. We've met with several cities. I think the one advantage of the drone is having the ability to immediately respond to our deputies. Cost is another thing, but really, the drone program we are looking at, that's not to say it's going to come, but it's one of the things we're considering, would give us the ability to have a drone up minutes after an incident occurs, so the deputies would get immediate air support. And it would be run over quite, in talking with the captain, it would be run over a quite extensive period of time, And yeah, the batteries do last about 45 minutes, but you're not going to have continuous flight. You're going to dispatch it just like you would a car to calls for service. We visited with Beverly Hills Police Department. In fact, I went myself about 2 weeks ago, and it has been extremely successful. So it's a program we're looking at alongside LEAPS because it is a program that if we were able to go with it, we're going to get our deputies quite a bit of air support day and night, and we're going to get it up, like I said, the moment the call goes out. In fact, one of the successes of some of the programs we looked at, and I'll stop there, is some of these PDs have been able to use these drones to respond to calls for service where you have, 5 deputies or cars responding to a man with a knife in the park. Drones have actually been able to go overhead and take a look and say, you know what, that's actually a cell phone that he has. So let's, on that judgment, we can limit our response and maybe calm things down. So it's one of the things that we are considering.
Rod, isn't it true that though, within the city, in the inner core, we have a lot of spots where we still can't fly those things because of the air? Yeah, there's a lot of spots within the city, right?
Absolutely, sir. In fact, I'll have to speak with my folks who are looking at it, but I do believe that the vast majority of the city we can fly over. I know there are areas that.
And the reason why I know that is simply because when we try to do aerials for real estate and things like that and commercial stuff, there's certain pockets we have to go to the city and get okay from, and they say, no, we can't go there. We can't fly in certain areas. I'm going. And so I've always known there's been little pockets within the city limits that we can't, So.
Yes, sir. Absolutely, there is. So, but once again, just want you all to know that, yeah, we're definitely considering, and for us, the most important thing is giving the deputies what they need and want.
I agree.
And Captain Lecrevane and I have been talking extensively about this and are going to continue to do our research and communicate and come up with the best platform to ensure they have the safest way to do their job.
So again, if and you guys have been talking extensively from the sheriff's department point of view, there's a certain amount of money that's going to be spent on a aerial surveillance system, and its alternative use of that money in terms of additional deputies or something like that. I assume something that you guys have talked about and decided that the money's well allocated to a surveillance system.
Absolutely, sir. And what we are doing and what other cities have done is our drone program is going to be run by our department, by the Public Safety Department. The communication, much like the LEAPS program, will be directly with the Sheriff's Department employees, their desk, as well as we envision having the ability, and I think LEAPS can do that as well, to where we can send whatever footage down to whatever deputies, supervisors, investigators that the captain decides can receive it, and it'll be useful for them. So, but the program, to answer your question, it will be our pilots, our observers, and we will, it'll be run by us and funded by us. The cost is not significant at all, to be honest with you, other than the cost of buying the initial equipment, as well as the few employees that we're going to need to man it and run it.
So if I understand it correctly, then we will have the city police department running the drone situation, and we will keep LEAPS as well. So we'll have both covering the city?
As it stands right now, sir, yes, we're considering both platforms.
It's pretty good. I like that.
Yeah. Yes,
More
sir.
the
Thank
merrier.
you. Thank you.
There's if I can add a little bit to it, I had some lengthy conversations during our first phase of research with the Aero units out of Burbank. They cover Burbank and Glendale area. I don't know if you guys remember a few years ago, they might have had an accident on their helipad that cost them 3 helicopters. They're kind of expensive to replace, so they were directed to have these same conversations to see what the best platforms were. They actually, I believe, they reached out to you, didn't they?
Yes, they have. Yes, sir.
For fixed wing coverage, because they heard that we were having success with it up here. Each one of the different platforms, there's 3 different basic platforms. There's the drones, fixed wing, and then the platform that we operate with our tactical helicopters. Each one of them has significant advantages and disadvantages. the drones have limitations on where they can go and how high they can go, and flight time. The fixed wing platform has advantages of being able to stay up for multiple hours. The communications have gotten way better, and if with an upgraded system, I can only imagine that they'd be far more significantly better. But and then our patrol airships have, when they're up and running and they can make it up here, they're extremely effective because it's deputies talking to deputies, and they understand what we're looking for specifically. They can do different things with their equipment. You can, for example, you could send a helicopter to an outlying area. Even the city of Palmdale had one recently where deputies were a long way away from an incident, and then one deputy was there involved in the incident. They actually landed and were able to get out of the helicopter and help. So we have that. There's additional options on each one of those platforms. Every platform has pluses and minuses, and we're trying to evaluate those for the best, so that the city doesn't or is investing its money wisely and getting the best return on it. Currently LEAPS is our most consistent platform, and I know that the guys in the field love it.
So in the meanwhile, while we're kind of going through the discovery phase on adding the drones on, is there anything that can be done to increase the time? You said there was 5-hour flight time. What can be done to increase that to 6, 7, or at least 8 hours, just to give the deputies some more support out there? Is it pilots, funding?
The main reason why we don't support in limited air is purely because of the camera itself. We have a stable of pilots. Bob schedules them every week. That's not an issue. We're not short of pilots.
Okay.
In fact, there's oftentimes there's a waiting line of people that want to be pilots.
So Archie, when you say the camera,
Yes,
I mean,
sir.
obviously the camera's operating now, but it's obviously outdated.
The
Or
problem with
what's-
it now is purely in the infrared spectrum.
Okay.
The camera there, it has a very limited, a Stirling engine is something that uses liquid nitrogen to cool the back frame. Where
You just went right over my
well,
head there.
well,
Okay.
yeah, but that's
So
the
keep it
true
simple,
reason.
okay?
Go to Wikipedia and look at a Stirling engine.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the
So it
shortcoming
doesn't
now.
have a
We
shutter
can't-
on it, you're doing like this and
No,
pushing the camera,
no,
okay.
no,
Right.
it doesn't.
So, yeah, no, so yeah, I can understand that, but I'm just trying to figure, so there's a limited time that camera, and it's only infrared? Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, the limitation is that at night, it's not the quality that we
Okay.
believe an officer in the field needs
Okay.
to rely on, yes. And any of you that would like to do the same as Commissioner McCracken did, you're always welcome to that. Bob will get you scheduled, and you'll get to see both the ground segment as well as the airborne segment. And we have supported a number of containments here in the city where we and the rotorcraft, the standard platforms that LASD uses, have operated together. And we complement and supplement each other. Any other questions?
Any questions? Archie, thank you.
You're welcome.
As usual, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving right along, California Highway Patrol. Captain, I'm gonna try this again, because you told me how, Captain Sawarski?
Close, sir. Zagorski.
Sikorsky.
Captain Joe Zagorski. I'm the new commander for the Antelope Valley Area CHP office. I assumed command January 2nd of that command from Captain Bronier. He's now an assistant chief up in our headquarters area. I came with some very basic stats, but first wanted to introduce myself and give a little background on myself. I've been with the Highway Patrol for about 19 years. I've been in numerous locations. I started as an officer in South Los Angeles, then went to the Morongo Basin area, which is in Joshua Tree, then spent some time in Indio as both an officer and a sergeant, Fresno as a sergeant, and then the last 4 years I've been in the South Los Angeles area office as lieutenant. During my time as lieutenant, I also ran the street racing enforcement unit and task force for all of LA County and the CHP, and I've been a civil disturbance manager for our special response team for the last 4 years as well. I'm proud to come up here, and I'm here to stay. My wife and I moved up to Tehachapi, so I'm going to be here for a while. I moved further from our division office to make it less enticing to try and get me to come back. The stability is necessary both for the office and just for even the area, for relationships that are formed. And I'm looking forward to all the relationships that we can have in going forward with that. Just some basic statistics from the office, just for the month that I've been there. We have had 138 crashes. It is down 7% from December's. In relation to other areas of LA County, I can speak firsthand about South Los Angeles, which takes on average of 600 to 700 per month for that particular office. So it is a big difference with that. But the traffic volumes and the patterns in this area are much different due to the openness that's experienced. Here, people can go as fast as they pretty much want to without incurring traffic or other impediments of that nature. Weather was the only thing that should slow people down, which doesn't up here, from what I've observed in the last month. We've had 71 DUI arrests, which actually is an increase of 1 from December. Typically, December is our high month for DUIs, as well as like 4th of July and Memorial Day. But January, we have already seen an increase in DUI arrests, with 95% of those being alcohol-based purely, not drugs or even a combination. We've recovered 12 stolen vehicles, with one of them having an arrest. And we've made 6 arrests for drug possession with intent for trafficking and/or sales, including one which identified a stash house in Palmdale. Unfortunately, we were in between shipments because apparently that house, they were basically sending out marijuana to various locations throughout the country, disguised as clothing sales. So people were paying an exorbitant amount of money for some horrible sweatshirts, but they were also getting pounds of marijuana along with the delivery. Typically, UPS does not scan anything less than 50 pounds, and FedEx typically has the same rule as well. So it is a common thing, and I've seen it in Fresno and other counties as well. And then also we've had 26 contacts with unhoused individuals in the area from various reasons, be on the freeway or other matters, which is actually is a very much smaller number than South Los Angeles, again, where we average between anywhere from 250 to 350 contacts a month. And those were typically all on the freeway for those particular areas. So, any of you have questions for me? And it's a pleasure to be here for me.
Any questions for the captain?
Just one, and I've asked this a couple different times. To date, is there still no accurate testing to see if someone is under the influence of marijuana, to what degree? And how do you guys actually negotiate when you have someone, I'm assuming they do a sobriety test, but there's not a blood test, or how does that work as far as the marijuana situation?
For the marijuana, they're actually currently going through testing of a saliva-based roadside test with the University of California, San Diego, is the university that's actually developing it and testing it. I don't know the progress of that at this point. All of our officers go through an advanced roadside interdiction training for drug specific, not just marijuana, but all drugs. And then we also have the drug recognition expert programs. If someone is determined to be under the influence of drugs or a combination of drugs, their only option is a blood test for determination of that. But it's going to be purely based on the field sobriety tests, specifically the standardized field sobriety tests. And all of my officers use a battery of those standardized field sobriety tests, which are fairly accurate in demonstrating impairment and inability to drive a motor vehicle with the care and concern that's necessary to keep people alive. But there's no instant test at this point for drugs, for marijuana, methamphetamine, or the other common drugs that are out there.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Any other questions? Captain, welcome aboard. We're glad to have you here. So thank you so much, sir, for being here. So, Mr. Sherwood.
Good morning. Okay, so I've told you this before, but basically these are the statistics for felony cases that we filed, and only for the city of Lancaster. And I tried to present to you the crimes in the same format that the sheriff's department is presenting, so you'll have some indication if it's not going to be, there's a little bit of a time gap, but the idea hopefully was to try to see if they were showing an increase in robberies, for example, were we showing an increase in filings right? So hopefully if there's an increase in robberies, more robbers are being caught, more robbers are being prosecuted. So that was sort of my hope in trying to provide these statistics. If there's anything else that I can get statistics for pretty much anything from our department. So if there's anything you think would be helpful in trying to determine whether crime is, increasing from a prosecution standpoint over a given period of time, I can try to get any of those statistics for you. So with that being said, for the month of January, arsons, we filed 1 arson case. We file 1 every 2 months, so that's right in line with the yearly average. Auto burglaries, we filed 8, so our normal number is 12, so that's down a little bit from the normal number of auto burgs we file. The other burglaries, residential and commercial, we filed 7. Our yearly average is 7. Criminal threats, we filed 5. The yearly average is 4. Drug sales, we only filed 1. We average about 3. Domestic violence, we filed 9. The yearly average is 8. Evading or hit and run, we filed 3 last month. The yearly average is just slightly over 1. Felony assaults, and those would be like the aggravated assaults that the deputy was talking about. We filed 11. The yearly average is a little over 12. Felony DUIs, we haven't filed 1 yet for the last 2 months. We only usually file 1 per month. Grand theft, excuse me, or identity theft, we only filed 1. The yearly average is 4. The only thing I would say about that is in the previous month, December, we filed 8. So the 2-month average would be 4.5, which is right in line with our yearly average. Same thing with illegal firearms. We filed 21 last month, which is a lot. We normally only file 14, but we only filed 9 the month before. So when you look at the 2-month total, it's 30, and the yearly average actually is almost 15. So that's right in line with the yearly average when you look at it for 2 months. Murder, attempted murder, 2 in December, 2 in January. Our average per month is 2. Robberies, we filed 5. We filed 5 the month before. Our average is a little over 7, so those are down a little bit. Sex crimes, we filed 7 last month. That's high. I would say that most of those were failure to register, so those weren't actually new sex crimes cases, but people who had prior convictions that had failed to register. Vandalism, we filed 2. We normally file a little over 3. So it's actually, from what I've been seeing since I've been keeping these stats, we're pretty consistent, almost within a case or 2 in terms of the number of filings that we're actually handling. The only other thing I wanted to say was, I know the captain was talking about the catalytic converter task force, and I did want to say that I found that those sorts of task forces are very effective. In this particular case, the deputies that were assigned to that task force came and talked to me. They wanted a particular DA assigned to that task force to help them prosecute those cases. Otherwise, they just go into the general trial pool, and they're subject to plea bargaining and all the other things that we have to do in order to function, given the numbers of cases we handle. But if I get a special DA, they'll vertically prosecute those cases. So they'll file them, they'll do the arraignment, they'll do the preliminary hearing, they'll do the they'll do the trial. This particular DA is pretty aggressive, so I know I did see some of the cases that she was handling. One of them was a huge catalytic converter organized crime group. We had cases out of Lancaster. There was a case out of, I think, La Crescenta, Pasadena area, where a neighbor had come out in the middle of the catalytic converter and they'd been shot at. There's some cases even out of Simi Valley. So those all got sort of combined and were prosecuted out of our courthouse. And I know there's been substantial prison time. So we'll get, when those cases are vertically prosecuted, they tend to get higher prison sentences. So I know a number of those people got state prison sentences when, had they just gone through the normal pool, they may not have received the same amount of time. So I have noticed that when we did the same thing with the illegal gambling. I had 2 DAs assigned to handle those cases. Those cases got vertically prosecuted. They tend to be given more time and attention, and that tends to send a message to the people engaged in that sort of behavior. So that's all I got. Any questions?
I have a question. From any of these that you just mentioned, do they involve anyone with a CCW who basically abused the privilege?
Yes, that's a really good question. Actually, most of them are going to be felons with firearms. So, but yes, some of them do get their people. They're not so much with CCWs, but I haven't seen any of those. But we do have some that are normal, law-abiding citizens who have a legally registered firearm, but they're not storing it properly. Like it's in their glove box and it's supposed to be in the trunk. So there's a lot of rules about how you're allowed to transport firearms, as you can imagine. Generally, those are handled either informally with gun safety classes and things of that nature, or as misdemeanors. But they do get filed as felonies in some instances.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, hopefully?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
I think the fundamental question comes back to whether we feel safer or not in the community. And part of that's going to have to do with the kinds of cases that get to your, excuse me 1 second, get to your attention. The legislature has been pro-criminal, or their increased leniency in terms of the kind of statutes that they're passing, and that's going to affect the ability of the Sheriff's Department to act, and that's going to affect the kinds of cases that come to the District Attorney's Office and probably the kinds of cases that you end up filing. It'd be interesting to know, it's my belief from what you've talked about in the past that the felonies haven't changed much, but the misdemeanor prosecutions have vastly diminished. And I wonder if that has an effect on the safety of the community.
Right. That's a good question. I'm sure there's studies out there that examine that. What I can tell you is, if you've got to go back probably to 2009 or 2010, whenever Prop 47 was passed. But back and I've spent most of my career in the Antelope Valley. I've been a DA for 25 years and probably spent 18 of it here in the Antelope Valley in various assignments. Back 10, 15 years ago, possession of cocaine was a felony. It's now not prosecuted. So, that's going to be, you've got a situation where you had people, that were arrested for possession of cocaine that were going to prison for a substantial period of time in a lot of cases. Now those cases aren't charged. There's, I've heard the arguments on both sides, like those people are they're better dealt with through drug treatment than they are with state prison, and there's an argument to be made for that sort of how to deal with that issue. I can tell you from what I've seen, most of the non-serious, non-violent, your property crimes, almost all of those cases are involving people with a drug problem or a mental health problem or a combination. And it's just a question of how you want to, as a society, I think, not to get into the weeds, but how do we want to deal with that? I keep promoting the alternative sentencing court that we have in A16 because in my 25 years, it's the only program that I've seen actually work dealing with, people who have an addiction or a mental health problem that is so severe that it's got them to a situation where they're looking at, 4, 5, 10 years in prison. And until you get them with that sort of a hammer, I guess, hanging over their head, are they really going to undergo the treatment that they need to solve that kind of a problem? So.
Commissioner, if I could, I want to defend Mr. Sherwood here. In the past, we've beat him up a little bit about his office's policies, but we started taking a look at the open case rejects that we were getting back from his office to see if there was some way that we could either refile cases or approach our filings a little bit differently. And I found almost always when it's available, Mr. Sherwood's DAs are using every tool that they have to address the crime problems and either send folks to the drug treatment courts or assign them to some other thing that's already been assigned to them, like enforcing their probation or their parole, where they are precluded from prosecuting the open case. And I actually, and now that we've had a chance to look at those things, I think that their efforts have contributed to the fact that we don't have a skyrocketing crime rate like other places. So they're trying.
Yes, they do, yeah. Incredible. Any questions for Mr. Sherwood at all?
I think your delineation is a good one. I think what people probably really what they want to know is if they go to the store, are they safe? They go to the shopping and they come out to their car, are they safe or are they in danger? That's a different question than whether they're concerned about whether somebody down the street is snorting cocaine on Saturday night with their girlfriend. So I think when I ask the question, what I'm wondering is whether or not we're seeing an increase in criminal behavior that makes people feel less safe.
Well, I think like one of the things that I've seen, and this is an issue that's come up before, is when you decriminalize or you minimize petty theft, for example, right, you create more of that. And when you're creating more of that and you're creating people feeling like they can just go into stores and take what they want, you get store employees and you get security people who get fed up with that. And then they start to engage. And then once you get an engagement, that's when the weapons come out. That's when the fights start. That's when you get an Estes robbery, right? So you have somebody who's just going in, they're going to steal some, some electronics, they're going to steal some groceries, they're going to steal whatever they're going to steal. They feel that they have, nobody's going to do anything to them. So they go in, they take it. Now all of a sudden they're confronted, and now, the fight breaks out, and the weapons come out, and the pepper spray, and and that's when the sheriff gets involved, because now you've taken a petty theft that would have been a citation maybe, and you've turned it into a violent felony that's state prison in 85%. Robbery is still a violent felony, and if you push a security guard when you're taking a bottle of wine, that's a robbery. And so I don't have a tool to deal with that, right? I have a robbery, or I have a petty theft that is a diversion case, or if it's even filed. I have nothing, I know we have a lot of people from the legislature here, but it would be nice to have something that's sort of a middle ground there that could be a felony if it continues to happen. But I don't have a tool there to address that problem. I don't know how the sheriff's, is handling it. Again, I know they're doing the best they can with the resources that they have as well.
I think too, and that's part of the Rod stuff too, is this, the new police force that's going to be coming in, and hopefully it will address some of those issues on penalties and that the city will implement. But I don't know what the answers are either. I mean, with more things people getting released or getting slapped on the hand, like I've always said, if they can't do the time, they won't do the crime, but type thing. They're doing these things and knowing there's no ramifications. So that makes your job, Bob, the captain, the city's job, most important, incredibly difficult. But what I see from both the city and the captain, the sheriff's department, and the DA here, you guys are doing an incredible job with what you have to deal with. It's incredible, and so I commend you. But I think with this new model that's coming out, that's going to help, Rod. I think will alleviate some of that stuff, but who knows? That's tough. It's tough, Bob. I don't know how you do it. Questions? All right. Thank you, sir. Jocelyn.
Good morning. Continuing to work with Rod and public safety and code enforcement on mostly quality of life type issues. Obviously can't go into detail about open investigations and enforcement matters that we're working on for good reason. But just to kind of brief overall, there are a couple of areas that we're looking at right now. We have some problem tobacco shops and mini marts with bad actors who are operating them. They're selling to minors. They're selling single cigarettes, those kinds of things. Is it a big deal? Not, it's a huge deal, but it's a quality of life issue that we're trying to get our hands around. And I don't know if any of you have been along Sierra Highway lately. It's looking a little grim. So now that loitering for the intent of prostitution has gone away and no longer exists, We got together, public safety, and some of the members from the Lancaster station and I had a session a few weeks ago to talk about some old school strategies to try to deal with some of the issues happening on Sierra Highway. So we're going to be working on that moving forward. You may see some activity of interesting sorts going on out there sometime in the next few months. And I think that's all I'm going to say for today. It's been a long meeting. I'll hand it over to Rod.
Just to add to what Jocelyn just said, we're working really well together. Her, my special problems team, the captain, when we're identifying locations that are problems for the community is probably the best way to put it, because as she just spoke of, one of the locations where these single cigarettes were being sold over time, and I wasn't here, but I'm sure the captain can speak to it, over time developed into a plethora of problems up until the last operation they did on this location. They made, I think it was 11 or 12 arrests, and I think, in fact, I believe there was a presentation to you, and it was so bad that there was a woman who had set up a table and began to sell her rolled marijuana cigarettes like she was at a swap meet. So that's what they turn into when unaddressed. At least some of them do. So, and that's kind of what our focus is with the hybrid program. So, you had a question, sir?
Yeah, on that, we've addressed this before, it seems like on these. And yeah, and it slowed down and came back up again, and we're right back at it again, Jocelyn. Is it same owners of these shops, or are they switching ownerships, or what is it?
The business owner is not the property owner. There seems to be, for the main bad actor that we're talking about, he actually operates 4 or 5 different mini-marts, smoke shops. And he's just a bad actor all the way around. The property owner is aware of the situation and at least has paid lip service to wanting to be a good member of the community. We sort of, have our doubts about that. But you're right. I mean, it comes and goes in waves, but if we don't pay attention to it, then it comes back. So then we have to put some resources, some internal city resources into addressing it, and then it dies back down.
So when there's an infraction, what do we do as a city? What do we do at that point? Let's say it's an infraction, and it's what do we do as a city?
So, we can revoke somebody's business license, and if they continue to operate, then that's a misdemeanor because you can't conduct business without a valid city license. And I can file that because that's a muni code violation, and so we're not taking up Mr. Sherwood's resources. But generally, just shutting it down is basically how we address it. We revoke the license, we find whatever valid violations there are, and those give rise to allowing us to shut the business down. And if somebody continues to operate, and if there are serious violations, like some of the businesses that Rod talked about a couple of meetings ago or last meeting, where there are life safety issue type violations, then we can order vacated. The building official can issue an order to vacate, and we can board that place up if we need to protect life safety. So we just don't let them operate anymore. And whatever legal means we have to do that, we'll use.
One of the, and to add to that, one of the differences that we're bringing with our hybrid program is the fact that we're going to have our own entity, including those police officers, that are here to focus on those root cause problems. So whereas our sheriff's department has massive demands, and certainly the violence and things that occur have to take top priority with them, we're bringing a law enforcement piece that is here to focus on those issues and stay on top of those issues. And we're doing it already, even without our cops yet. So I'm excited to see what happens when they come. And we've got those folks out there that are really working with the community. So that's a change you're going to see as we get our pieces in. So, and I'll segue in to let you know that we are actually moving forward or in our hiring process for several items right now. I am thankfully hiring an assistant director. I'm so happy about that. And envision that'll be a lieutenant. And then we're also going through the hiring process for our manager, which will be an experienced a former sergeant from law enforcement, and eventually a sergeant. Once we get our cops and we move into a police agency, obviously I'll be the chief, and that'll be a lieutenant and a sergeant to work with me and those pieces that we're bringing in. We're also working with the captain now to hire our law enforcement technicians. And these are the individuals that I told you that are going to work with the sheriff's department, trained by the sheriff's department, and go out and take reports and help lower those response times that our citizens are having to deal with. And there's a couple other items within there that we're working on, but this is where we get going. So we've accepted applications, and we'll be doing our interview process soon.
And you guys are going to be housed in the old high school district office, am I correct?
Yes, sir, that is correct. That building was purchased for public safety, and I want everyone to know I envision it. For me, where I came from, everything's about community. So for me, I want to title it the Community Public Safety Building and ensure that our community has input on everything from what it looks like to what we provide, and offer community access to the building for certain things. So I want to pass on to you as well that, as mentioned a moment ago, or a little bit ago, myself and the city manager met with Sheriff Luna. Super excited, really good to meet with him. Excited about him taking that office over on a personal aspect as a former sheriff, as well as someone working for the city of Lancaster. I want you to know that visit was about us talking directly with him and getting him to understand that we need you to pay attention to Lancaster. And since we are your largest municipality contract, we feel like your eyes should be on our city first. And so we put that in very certain terms, and had a really good conversation with him and some of his counterparts or folks that are working for him. We stressed the staffing concern. We stressed that hard, and we pointed out that, hey, we've got a great group of deputies. We've got outstanding leadership out here, and what we need is for the sheriff's department to get Lancaster Station fully staffed, because unfortunately our great deputies, they're having to pretty much work 6 or more overtime shifts a week to ensure they're staffed. I think Captain Lecravain's non-field items are doing what's called carping, which is where you're working a patrol position 4 times a month, I think it is. And that pulls them out of the very important jobs they have to do, like detectives investigating crimes and trying to solve crimes. So, and not to mention the drain it puts on you to have to work pretty much 16 hours, or I'm not sure, I think they're doing how they're doing it, 16-hour shifts. That's a lot on the body to do that for a month, or give up your regular days off, which are just as important. So we stressed that really hard with the sheriff. We also talked about our crime stats. We talked about technologies and what we're doing, and made sure that he understood the city of Lancaster is going to do their part alongside the men and women at Lancaster Station, and we need him. We need him to do his part and get those bodies down here so we can be fully staffed. He did commit to coming down. In fact, he turned because we wanted him to know, hey, we want to see you out here. Our commissions, our council wants to see you. And he turned and directed his staff to get him scheduled to spend an entire day out here. So we're going to make sure that you know when that happens and figure out how we may be able to have you meet him as well. And just I wanted to also pass on our technologies are moving forward. In fact, Andrew Noga just texted me the first flock camera that he put up about 30 minutes ago. So the flock cameras are going up. We're excited about that. As mentioned at a previous meeting, those are the automatic license plate reader cameras. We're going to want to speak with some of you about the option to have those cameras at businesses as well. Graffiti tracker is up and running, just got going, I'd say about 2 weeks ago. So we're looking forward to what that's going to produce. I will add that through a joint effort here, we had pretty bad graffiti incident where an individual was doing gang graffiti and produced a weapon. And, you know, we had placed cameras around this park where this occurred because we knew that this was a problem and got incredible footage of the individual who was committing that crime. And so Captain Lecravain's folks are working on that as we speak, getting that person into custody. So, and just continuing with the technologies, we're going through our trial phase starting today, in fact, with body cameras. So obviously there's a need for body cameras when we have our officers, but we see it beyond that and understand that our public safety folks out in the field need to have them as well. And those cameras work, as John will tell you, for the protection of all, the individual that we may contact as well as the employee wearing them. So, and they give a form of transparency. So we're excited about that. And you know what? Oh, and just wanted to mention one more thing. We've started kind of moving forward with our neighborhood watch meetings. We had one just a couple days ago. One of the pieces that's currently being hired is going to run that program completely. And once again, I wanted to offer to you to attend neighborhood watch meetings if you'd like. As a commissioner, probably what we'll do once we get full rolling is email them out through Katie so that you know the dates and times. And if you're interested in attending one and being introduced as a commissioner, we can certainly make that happen. So be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions, Rod? No? Thank you, sir. Oh, Jid
I know
does.
you started it, it's been long morning, but, I mean, long meeting, but regards to those selling single cigarettes and the single beer cans, okay. And the way I look at it is selling those single items. Those mini mart, they are the one who's recruiting homeless people, criminals, selling those break items, okay. That's the way I look at it. And even they're not criminals, so somebody who purchased the single beer cans, even they get in the car, it's not going to make it home. It's going to empty it out in the car. So I know and all those ABC license in the city of Lancaster now, conditional use permit, correct? And that there is any way we can tie it up, that use permit as a city attorney, you know, and make it, or either we ban it or make it tougher, you know?
So, excuse me, a new entity that wants to sell alcohol has to get a conditional use permit, or at least a director's review at the, you know, at the staff level, that the planning staff would review and approve and impose conditions. And so if there is a business that is operating that is selling alcohol in an illegal manner, whether it's single servings or whatever, we can revoke the CUP, we can revoke the director's review approval, we can revoke the business license. We also coordinate with ABC and have ABC impose their punishments to lesser or greater success depending on, you know, who's involved at ABC. And the same with the state folks with regard to tobacco. There are violations of the state law, the Business and Professions Code, and so we can revoke just their tobacco license if they're otherwise, you know, conducting business appropriately, but with respect to tobacco, they aren't, or we can revoke the business license altogether. So yeah, we have plenty of tools internally that we can address some of these issues. It's just, you know, we can't utilize deputies because they have much more important things to do, not that this isn't important. So that's why as Rod is building out his team, we'll have more internal resources that we can address these kinds of quality of life issues that do lead to bigger problems. That's definitely true. So if we can nip them in the bud before they start growing, that's the goal. But we need to get the team in place so we have the bodies to do it.
Any other questions? Thank you. Jackie. Congressman Garcia's office. How are you?
I'm well, sir. How are you?
Very good.
Well, good morning, everyone. Greetings from Congressman Mike Garcia. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you, everybody, for all the hard work you do. A couple things. Last night, you may have been aware that was the State of the Union address, and Congressman Garcia's guest was Tanya Owen, the beloved wife of Sergeant Owen. And during that time, she had an opportunity to meet with some of the congressional members, as well as have a little snippet of time on Newsmax, just to talk about the need for law enforcement support and funding, and just the consequences of what's happened when we don't do that. And I think if anyone could speak on that subject, it would be Tanya. So the Congressman was honored to have her by his side yesterday. Just to reiterate, I think when we last spoke, I wasn't totally confirmed on his committee reports or assignments. So he is going to continue to serve on the House Appropriations Committee, which is great news for us. And on that, he'll be on the subcommittee for defense, the subcommittee for transportation, housing, and urban development. He was also asked to be on the House Intelligence Committee, and at this point, he's still going to meet with the chairman to find out what subcommittees he'll serve on in that regard. And then he serves on the House Committee for Science, Space, and Technology, which we all know is very significant for our region out here, and he's on the subcommittee for energy on that commission. One of the things earlier in September, he presented a workshop on the community funding projects. Back in the day, they used to be called earmarks. It was, for better or worse, that's what they were called. And some congressional members choose not to go in that route, but the congressman feels like that's beneficial for his district. And so it's sort of been rebranded as community funding projects. And so for fiscal year 2023, I just want to bring to your attention some of the requests that the congressman has had for our area. One is the City of Lancaster Community Center Improvement Project has put in a request for $850,000. The City of Lancaster Public Crime Prevention Project has asked for $1.1 million for surveillance and traffic cameras. And I'm hoping this is not news to you, sir. And so there's a number of transportation projects regarding Avenue M. As we all know, there's construction going on, much needed. There's been an enormous loss of life because of high speeds, especially with the Northrop traffic coming in and out. So there's 2 funding requests regarding that. As far as bills, he was able to work with his bipartisan colleagues, Representative Julia Browley and Judy Chu, in regards to a bipartisan wildfire mitigation bill. Right now, after our rains, it's hard to think about that, but we will be there in like a second. We're going to be talking about the fires. And that's something that all three of the representatives really in their districts have to address because of the high fire risks and the damages that have been done because of the Bobcat fire and the various lake fires and so on and so forth. And then again, I think I mentioned in our last meeting that his bill for the Military Spouse Act was passed and signed into law. So if you have any military members that have any questions about that, but that is a federal law, we're trying to get the word out. So where that is significant is if a military member's spouse is non-military and they're a teacher, a nurse, and a lot of states require that they go through a re-credentialing to be able to get back into the workforce in that new station state. This bill creates a reciprocity. So the spouse can get right to work, which really is a tremendous asset for our retention of our military, because no longer they went from a 2-household to a 1-household because of this not being able to do that, but now they can retain their 2-household incomes, and I think that'll continue to really boost the morale for our military and in hopes to help with our retention of our men and women. So I'll stop there unless you have any questions.
Any questions for Jackie? Any? Jackie, thank you.
All right, thank you all.
And thank you to the congressman. Thank you. Kimball, Sylvie Carrell's office. How are you?
Good morning, everybody. How's everybody doing? Commissioners, staff, and community members. My name is Kimball, and I'm a new field representative for Assemblyman Creo. We are a brand new district, Assembly District 39. Assemblyman Lackey has the Assembly District 34, which is on the west side. We will be opening up a brand new office in Palmdale, right next door to the Palmdale City Hall, and we'd love to have everybody there when we do open the office up at that time. At this time, I don't really have a report on, we are, like I said, a brand new office, just trying to just make things happen at this time. Next month we'll come in and let you know what the assignments committees that the Assemblyman is on and any other pertinent legislation going on in Sacramento at the time. I just kind of wanted to echo what Deputy Green said earlier in regards to the toy giveaway. I had an opportunity to participate in that with the other, I think it's 3 to 4 deputies that actually came out. They're across from the Truth and Spirit Church. Wonderful display of community service and engagement for our community. I think that all the families and kids were very excited, and actually were very excited to interact with your public safety deputies. So what I want to say is thank you, and keep up all the great work. I don't know if anybody has any questions.
Any questions? Kimball, thank you for being here,
All right.
sir. Look
Thank you,
forward
though.
to it. Okay, thank you, sir. Kathleen. Public business from the floor.
This is a time to address the Lancaster Criminal Justice Commission on non-agendized matters. Speaker cards can be found on the back table of the council chambers. Individual speakers are limited to 3 minutes each unless a different time limit is announced. State law prohibits the commission from taking action on items not listed on the agenda. Thank you.
Anita.
Hello, my name is Anita Bourdelamet. I've been here several times, actually since 2014. I want to give you a little history of my family. My grandfather was 100% Jewish. I believe that some people in the city of Lancaster have targeted me over my heritage. You and I both know what's happened to the Jewish nation. This is the last police report that I filed. Let's talk about human trafficking and laws, because I really feel mocked by this city, and I find it amazing that when somebody has evidence on officers and state official judges committing capital crimes of extortion, stealing somebody's business, murders, that my children were forced to witness in LA County Jail, and you sit here and play this in front of the camera for everyone in this city. LA County is the highest state of human trafficking. My daughters and me have been human trafficked by state officials after I came to Rex Paris and reported human trafficking and a business stealing a retirement. These people have gotten in my face, and the return that I've gotten from this city is prosecuted illegally. I've turned in state's evidence, sued 15 people. All lawsuits were dismissed because of one reason or another. I get this man telling me he's been in this city for 18 years, and I have a missing persons detective, Melissa Dorsey, telling me that she knows a retired judge kidnapped my daughter. The male that kidnapped my daughter made a phone call to me, telling me that the only mistake he made is that while he was raping her, he didn't blow her brains out. Look up a movie called Lure, and a female named Kitty something, I can't think of the name, Brian Rothbone. You have serious problems. The reason why you're having little problems is you got serious problems at your DA's office. I want my case investigated. I'm still being stalked. My neighbors are coming into my house, stealing stuff and telling me that when I leave to go to Bakersfield, that they're actually using my house to run porn. You got serious problems in this city. Rex Paris is one of them. My constitutional rights are not going to keep being denied. This is really, really sad. And then I get laughed at when I call the police when...
Mr. David Paul.
Vice Chair Little and Commissioners, good morning. I too enjoyed what Lawrence Green said about the children and the toys. That is a good thing to have a child share the joy of community that way. Ms. Corbett, I most appreciated your old school comment. We have to get back to things that actually work. And I just have a few quick things. I wanted to say that Captain Zagorski failed to mention his resume. He's a Marine, so that's something that I appreciate. And as far as the discussion with the leaps and the fixed wing and the rotor, and I keep it simple. I call it a helicopter. I hear it go over my house, but the advantage of that is that once that happens, I know I have to raise a higher level of alert. And that helicopter is capable of broadcasting public service announcements in real time to the people that are wondering what the hell is going on here. So that's a plus. As far as the graffiti, yeah, these are misguided kids that lack appropriate supervision. And as far as putting people in prison when they're young for like cocaine possession, only makes their lives worse. So I appreciate that alternative sentencing approach. We have a lot of work to do, but Vice Chair Little, I appreciated your comment of your gratitude for all these public servants that have an impossible job, and we need to support them. I got my best friend back, and not many people can say this, but my best friend is an undertaker. And his kid, when we lived down the street 20 years ago, was in a neighborhood, and I have a lot of time on my hands, so I would engage with these children, and his son was in some trouble and going through things, and one of the things I did was use physical skills, modified boxing and things to help them. And that young kid used to come over and I used to pound on him. And instead of going to prison, he went into the Navy. He's now an active duty Navy SEAL, still serving. So that's the difference appropriate intervention in a child's life can make. And I'm here to help any way I can. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, David. Always a pleasure. Thank you. Commissioner comments? None? Well, I want to say it again. Mr. Sherwood, thank you, sir, for all you do. Captain, both captains, thank you. Gentlemen, thank you. Because I know the work, and Rod and the city and Jocelyn, thank you guys so much for everything you guys do. So if there's nothing else, then we'll adjourn this meeting to March 8th at